FightShow, episode 19, brought to you by No Punches Apparel, 717 Surplus, and our friends over at CannaDips. Made it back for another week, Bob.
Where? Good
You guys
good
can head
weekend.
over to CannaDips.com and use the code FightShow for 20% off your order over there. Other than that, a lot going on this week.
Heck yeah, man! That little break is over. Freaking MMA is back.
Well, no, it's not. I mean, it's back, and then they took it away from us again, and then
I'm trying to ignore that, but at least I got my fix. It wasn't just
me 2 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago is looking at the next card coming up, and I'm like, oh, cool, yeah, all right, cool. Oh man, we get Walker, and then we get Sean Strickland, and then I was like, all right, we got this card. And now we're a week out of this card, and I'm like, I'm not as content as I thought I would be. But some fights are better than no fights.
Yeah, we have a ton of stuff to go over, man. Mike Malott broke my heart this week. We have rules to go over. We have we have the Sean Strickland Duplessis, who actually might have won the fight. Well, we know who won, but there's a case to be made for that. Maybe Strickland watches. A lot of shit to go over today. So
I can't be mad at that decision. I'm not. Again, I've also been. I wouldn't say there's a difference in me being aware of someone and a fan of them. Like everybody that makes the walk gets respect, but like I've been following DDP a little bit since I think I saw his last or his second to last EFC fight in South Africa. And then he went to KSW, which is like Poland's CFFC. Every guy that's scary with a semi-Russian name but no beard is probably going through KSW. There's been a lot of guys come through KSW.
Have you it's one of those things, hey, I'm not gonna lie, I'll be honest with the fans. Mike Malott broke my heart. I did not lose $600. I did not collect $600 that I was getting to. So the very next fight, I was feeling horrible, and I was having some adult beverages, and I dropped $500 on Duplessis just to win. When they read that split decision, I saw a case for Sean Strickland winning the fight. I was not confident. When that final bell rung at the end of 5 rounds, I was not confident. I thought a bad night was going to get even worse. Have you ever? I can see a path for both arguments. I can see one that Duplessis, however you want to say it, he visually looked like he won the fight. Then you look at how many times he got hit compared to Strickland, and you see the fight stat charts, and you're like, oh man, Strickland hit him a lot more, but visually DDP looked better. So it's like, what do you like? I can see a path for both,
Well, we were talking off air about shout out to Sean Sheehan over in Ireland. That guy has an affinity for the rules like I have an affinity for the business side of this thing. Looking at, and I got him pulled up right now. We'll even go. Mm-hmm. We can't. We won't get a snap for this one. A strike. We won't get a strike for this one for putting this content up. If you look at this, so basically, the beginning of every UFC event, you hear John Anik usually say, judge where the judging is effective striking and grappling, effective aggressiveness, and cage control. But if you read the top of this, now mind you, this is the 2016 rules mission statement. You're only talking 6 pages here. I think this says 4 pages. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 pages. Now, again, there's a lot more that goes into this, but the main thing that you need to look at, and I wanted to highlight this before, but I didn't get a chance to, and I don't know if you can actually read all of this. This says, it must be stated that this criteria is to be used in specific order. The criteria may not move from one to the next without the prior criterion being 100% even in the judge's assessment. So when these judges are looking at these things, the first thing they're looking at is effective striking and grappling. And Nick talked about it. Our friend good friend Nick Gonzalez from Texas talked about it when he was on the show. Effective striking and grappling is the first thing they look at, and then effective aggressiveness, and then If that's even, then cage control. So when you have people talking all this shit or just posting stuff on the internet, that is not. It's not who throws more punches. Sean Strickland and Dricus du Plessis both fight the same way, pressure forward fighters. So that was a null. You kind of canceled each other out. You had points in the fight where one was pushing the game a little bit more and owning the center of the cage, and another was pushing back. And then you had the takedowns, which the takedowns are, I think, kind of what made a difference. Takedowns, there was no damage. They didn't hold him down. The takedowns, I believe in the judge's eyes, changed the progression of the fight. It changed. If Strickland was moving forward, it altered his game plan. It altered his course of action for the fight. So I think Dricus landing 6 takedowns is really what cinched it for him. But there isn't a person out here that actually knows what they're talking about. hasn't said. Now that's the caveat. There isn't a person here who knows what they're talking about that hasn't said it was razor thin. It could have went for either guy, etc., etc. Then you have with damage. The way damage is judged by MMA judges, which are the only opinions that matter, honestly, and at that time, damage is awarded by round. Now, my problem with that and with this system is if I bust your eye up in round 1, okay, much like du Plessis got his eye busted up. He even said in an interview he was fine. If I bust your eye up in round 1, okay, and by round 3 you can't see out of that eye damage was only to be judged by round 1, but by round 3 your eye looks atrocious. So there's so many gray areas in this that's something that definitely needs to be addressed.
Well, I'll tell you what, when the 5th round started, they cleaned Sean Strickland up. He had a face like he was pretty clean. Du Plessis was busted up pretty good. I think du Plessis might have hit him once or twice, and Sean started leaking again. Like blood was coming out. It was a great visual for a judge that, oh, God, he's bleeding again. When really it was just a cut that happened prior. He didn't really get hit like, you know what I mean? He didn't really get reopened up. He just started the round clean, and then by about a minute in the round, he's leaking all down the side of his face, looking like a God of War PlayStation 2 character. You know what I mean? With the big red streak going down his face.
Yeah.
So that's why I said visually, I could see how du Plessis might have looked better to the judges, but then you have the control and the takedowns, and I get that, but he didn't really do anything with them. And I've said on this show before, I do not feel I'm a good judge. I don't. Even with all the rounds of fighting that I've seen up close at high levels, I don't feel like I'm the best judge because I was concentrating on the rules. I would love to get Brent Coleflesh on this show and ask him, but the problem is Brent is still an active member of the Athletic Commission, so I think there are some questions he could answer here, but we couldn't ask him like specifically about like what he thought about the du Plessis,
No,
fight.
And honestly, to get him on here, to get Nick back, but the thing with, and this is no disrespect to Nick has his reps in as a fighter for 20 years.
Yeah.
Nick has more rounds in as a ref, I believe. Nick's been reffing longer than he's been judging. But even Nick said it's about perception because people sitting 10 feet behind him that are unbiased to the dude see 4 knees hit. And Nick even says, well, 3 of those knees didn't even hit. It was just a visual. So it's a lot of, and that's why you have 3 judges on 3 different sides of the cage. Josh threw a comment in here. Shout out to Josh. He's not that far from me. He's up and by towards the Poconos a little bit.
Josh and I bullshit online all the time. We send each other bets and stuff like that. What is up, Josh?
What's up, Jay? Yeah, I just came across that. So honestly thought Sean won till Buffer said D'Amato. He won, then I realized, okay, I'm wrong. He lost. Shout out to Josh. Says we got some viewers. If you guys are in here and want to drop a comment, we'll throw it up. We can talk about it. Fully interactive. I'm going to get rid of this CannaDips banner. And before I do, CannaDips.com, FightShow, 20% off your order. We love CannaDips. I'll get back to the comments here. Yeah, no, I think, and we put the card up and we can just start checking it out because we've honestly been talking about it.
Listen, I'm not the biggest fan of the 10-point must system for MMA. I really do feel like you should, as a judge, you should be able to look at the whole fight and say who you thought won. Kind of like Pride. You know what I mean? You just judge the whole fight. So
yeah, which we got it. There's something. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that has its own sets of issues too, but I don't really like the 10-point must for a 12-round fight is a better concept. When you only have 3 or even 5 rounds, the 10-point must is tough because it's oh my God, if you even lose 1 point for some shit, you know, you're in a really, really deep hole.
But, yeah, and you know, certain rules, we're gonna get into that a little bit later, but certain rules, certain places, and uniformity, as far as we've come, and I'll put this back, like 30 years they've been doing this, like, and we can actually go into this before we go into the card, but this is again another thing where it's been one way for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at everything that's going on in the sport now, and it's virtually untouched since 2016, like the full unified as we know it. But even a perfect example of that was the Arnold Allen fight.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those knees were illegal there, but they wouldn't have been illegal in other places. And when you have commentators that don't even know the rules on Saturday when they're calling the fight, and they don't even find out those rules that these guys are fighting under till Monday, and they work for the company putting on the show. There's a bunch of stuff that we just need some uniformity. Everybody's worried about bonuses and fight. We need some uniformity. We need Toronto to not have rules where anything besides the soles of your feet is down.
Well, you know I'll tell you what, the UFC is very powerful these days. They have a voice. You know, maybe the UFC could you know open up and say, hey, this is the rule set that's coming to if you want us to throw this show in Canada. I mean, it's pretty much been adapted just about everywhere in the United States. You know, we do the what is it? The ABC, the Association of Boxing Commissions. They meet every year, I believe, in June. And since 2016, they really have shaped this up. Pretty much anywhere, you know, I remember watching UFC broadcasts, and they're like, "Oh, we're in Texas. It's the old rules," and they don't do that anymore.
Yeah, it's the old rules or the new. It's not the unified rules anymore. It's the new unified rules, and then you get to a situation like we're going to talk about here in a little bit with Arnold Allen, where if you were in Vegas, those knees were legal, but they were illegal. And for what it's worth, shout out to Mark Goddard because he handled it accordingly. That type of situation.
He did. The fingertips were barely hitting, you know, and it was, you know, and listen, on 2 of the knees, it was clean. Evilov, or how do you say his last name? Evilov. He had come up in the air when the knees landed, but like on 2 of them, it was kind of borderline. And for a ref, that's a really hard call. Full speed, you know. Yeah, you know what? Here, I'll do the miniest ref rant in the middle of the show. Fix the fucking rules. Those knees shouldn't even be illegal. That's not what the rule is. The original rule was meant for a guy like in north-south position, not to. That's what the grounded fighter rule is for. We're sitting here. You know what? The ABC, the Association of Boxing Commissions, fix the fucking rule, man. That's not. Those knees should be illegal. It shouldn't matter if your hand is down or not, or this or blah 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 blah. All that fucking. Fix the fucking rule. We're sitting here going in circles for no fucking reason. Fix the fucking rule. You know, those knees should be illegal. If you're down on one knee, get your hands in front of your fucking face so you don't need a kneecap to your fucking teeth. Fix the fucking rule. That's not what the rule was originally meant for, you know?
This we're sitting here. Bud Light.
Bud Light. Sounds gay. Bud Light.
I'm in.
Sounds gay. I'm in. Bud Light.
No, but just like I said, we'll kind of get into that. There's definitely some uniformity that needs to happen. I think cage size. You got different cage sizes going to different places. You have different places where the grounded opponent rule is different. What do we talk? Where's other stuff you said about uniformity too? Cage.
Well,
cage
I'll tell you what. Listen, when you play in the NFL, you are playing on the same width and dimension field every stadium you go to. When you go to a baseball stadium, every park is different. Everyone is different. This is one of those things for mixed martial arts. Do you want to accept that some places have a different size cage? in different sets of rules, or do you want to fix it so that everything is uniform? Uniform.
Well, it's a perfect example. Big fan of Joey Pfeiffer. You know that we support everything Joey does. Joey's fighting at the Apex.
Yeah,
I
Joe's my
think
guy.
the Joey Hermanson fight looks different at the Apex than it does at a smaller cage favors a striker. Joey's a fucking striker. Like, not saying he's not a wrestler, but Joey is known for his striking. Jack Hermanson's known for his striking. That size cage, and again, there's methods to madness, and there's reasons why things are being done the way they're done, but behind the scenes. But some people don't understand it. But it's like there's a reason Joey for his headline in the Apex.
I would love it if I could pick Dana White's brain. I don't think a reporter has ever asked Dana White, why didn't you make the cage at the Apex the same size as Las Vegas? Why? Why? There was obviously, they have people and employees, and they sit down and they have meetings. That question was pitched. Do we want a 30-foot cage or do we want a 26-foot cage? And they went with a smaller cage. I'd love to know why. I'm not saying one way is right or
if you look
right
at
or wrong.
the production stuff they're doing there, you got Tough, you have Contender Series, you have Apex card. Like if you're producing content like I see it makes sense.
We'll see. When I was fighting, I would have loved a smaller cage. If you were a striker, I wanted you to have less room to work with. I wanted the cage to be closer to me than further away, so that if I needed to bum rush you and tie you up, like, you had less places to go. You know what I mean? So it's like I preferred a smaller cage. Now you might talk to a striker and they might say, "Hey, I like a smaller cage too because you have less places to run away from me."
You look at you look at Sean O'Malley, huge success at the Apex. Joey so far, huge success at the Apex. You look at these strikers and the guys that are really good at cutting the cage off. You got less cage to cut off, man. It definitely makes a difference. I'll pull this back up. We'll start digging into this. Got a couple other things before we were speaking of talk about the Apex. TKO. You heard about the TKO deal this week
with who? Bare Knuckle.
So yeah, and people might not have like, oh, why are they talking about wrestling? So TKO signed a distro deal.
Okay.
WWE Monday Night Raw, which has been on USA Network for as long as I was a kid and was a wrestling fan, they're moving it to Netflix. So you now have, and it's for twice as much as they were, like they're doubling up basically just for Monday Night Raw. They have their SmackDown property on SmackDown's going to be on USA, I think, and then their NXT, which is like their up and coming. It would be like the Dana White Contender Series for WWE.
Oh, okay.
That's going on the CW network. So they have all these influxes of money, and it's the same thing as the ESPN deal, where ESPN pays X amount of million, 200 million or whatever, to produce the content. They produce it. Netflix just distributes it, and I think it's Raw will be, and again, the semantics of the wrestling deal don't matter, but what I'm saying is the UFC ESPN deal ends in 25. TKO is currently going to be shopping. Yeah, so the UFC ESPN, that's why I'm talking about wrestling, because I give zero fucks about wrestling. TKO owns their Raw property, and they're distributing it to one place. They're doing this to another place, this to another place. Now, we talked on previous shows about ESPN. Greg Shapiro, the COO of TKO, had said our deal with ESPN allows us to be able to distribute more content, expand on what we're offering, maybe extra reviews, maybe extra fight nights, but they have the ability to add to that. Now, I really think ESPN is going to have to scratch and claw to keep UFC, because the TKO doubled their previous deal, where it was 200 and something million or something like that. It was 5 million over so many years, and this deal with Netflix is 10 billion over so many years. So they doubled up just with Raw. Now they have SmackDown. They have that. The UFC, I think, is kind of going to be packaged as a whole thing. Doesn't have as many properties as whatever. But I think if you see the UFC move, you're going to see you're not going to have to, like football. Some football is Amazon Prime's got the deal for, and if you don't have it on cable, you might be able to get it on Prime. And then baseball's, all these different leagues and different shit have all these different distro deals. So who's to say what's coming? But that deal's important. That deal's important for us to pay attention to as far as where we're gonna be consuming our UFC content here come January of 25.
Yeah, that's. I would think if I'm Dana White, he doesn't want distribution deals on like a bunch of different things. I think he kind of wants to keep it tight.
No, this is above Dana White. This is like Greg Shapiro, Ari Emanuel. This is the board at TKO. Is UFC is now their product, so it's not just Dana and the Fertitta brothers.
Yeah.
In a room anymore, like it was the Zuffa days. This is.
But you know what? You don't think Dana White still has a huge? The Fertitta brothers are gone. They're not involved anymore.
I don't. Yeah, the Fertitta brothers are fat and happy, and opening up more casinos and
and have more money they could ever spend in a lifetime. But I really do think. I think the what's the investment company that bought the UFC? WGM or GMI?
It's Endeavor now because it was WME Endeavor. They got rid of it. It's just Endeavor.
Okay. I really think they still would listen to what Dana White has to say, I mean, the guy knows his product. It would be interesting, it'd be interesting to see what the hell happens.
Yeah, no, I definitely think they have excuse me, I definitely think he still has a part. Him, Hunter Campbell, but even above them, like those are the guys you see now. You see Hunter, you see all the fighters, and Hunter Campbell's the chief business officer, but you see all these fighters essentially. Which, I mean, to a certain extent, Hunter Campbell is now Lorenzo Fertitta from the Zuffa days. You know what I'm saying? So you hear all the fighters talking about, I got a call from Hunter, or I got a call from Dana, or Sean and Mick Maynard, the matchmakers. But it's really those four guys kind of doing the thing and in the war room all the time. So,
and let's not forget the
news.
Good.
So speaking of news, Kayla Harrison.
Oh yeah, no, that's no, she beats Holly Holm. But I'm wrong a lot, so.
No, I think she does. I think 135, she's already done a test cut, Dana said, to 135. I think the most hilarious thing in the world was just last week, Don Davis was on Ariel Helwani, and you know how I feel about the PFL. Don Davis was on Ariel Helwani, and we're getting the Cyborg Kayla is going to happen, and she has one fight, and you're 100% going to see it, and next thing you know, that's been in the works for months. That's not something that just popped up.
That's the thing that we always talk about like people. A lot of times people are like, Dana White's so upset. The PFL, Francis Ngannou is like, PFL and Bellator. Where the fuck are you at? Like, you're like some hot chick that shows up once in a while, bangs us, and then leaves. Like, where the fuck are you at? Like, where's your product? I don't. There's not enough. You don't stay relevant. With what they're doing. Like, I want to be invested and I want to care. I like watching PFL. I like watching Bellator. Where the fuck are you at? I feel like it's
Bellator hasn't had the right. Again, it goes back to, like we said, with the UFC and the owners. Like, Bellator hasn't had the right owners to give them the proper push in. I mean, you look at Scott Coker. Scott Coker, people don't give him enough credit. Like, you want to talk about co-leaders and people that are peers with other people, like Scott Coker, K1, Strikeforce, Bellator. People don't. These people that are sitting here calling other people casuals in the chat groups, you're like, you want to have a conversation about Scott Coker and what he did promotionally for Strikeforce, and people don't really care, but then they want to call other people names. It makes no sense. It's what he was able to do over the course of X amount of years. Like, he might not have the Dana White reputation, but those in the game and those that have been around know Scott Coker was fucking a good dude and good for the sport.
I got nothing bad to say about Scott Coker. He's tried to do his best through all these years after the Bjorn Rebney days and stuff. But here's the thing. They have meetings. They have employees. They have production people. This is the first weekend that UFC's not on. Where the fuck are you at? How are you not throwing an event this weekend? If you're relevant, if you have some money to work with, your whole roster sitting on standby. Why aren't you throwing a huge doubleheader on Friday and Saturday this weekend?
They put everything into this February or March. Yeah, March 24th. It runs the same day as the Mexico card is the PFL Bellator Champion Series, and it's
and that's cool, and I get that, but throw. I mean, my God, I throw you can't call it a contender series. Throw some kind of programming up. You got this giant roster of fighter, and I get it. The PFL versus Bellator champions, that's cool. You have the rest of your roster waiting to fight. How the hell are you not having an event this weekend? Or any weekend. Listen, I'm a junkie. Okay,
well, let's here. To be fair, Bellator, the whole Bellator deal kind of happened. I mean, unless you have guys that were specifically like, I'm just going to start a fight camp because I know something's coming down the pipe. Like, if you really think about the timing of this, the Bellator, hold on, I'll look it up just so I have, because the rumor was there and everybody kind of knew it was happening. I am definitely not Jamie from November 20th. So it was announced November 20th. So assuming the deal got done the middle of November, you got guys fighting on a card in March. You know what I'm saying? And even then, that happened, that acquired it. They did all that. And then you got to figure you have people under contract, 70-something fighters or however many fighters they had under contract that they pulled, and all the stuff that goes along with it before you can even think about an event on. So realistically speaking, the fact that they're coming out with a PFL Bellator event this early, but they're going to do, the format is I think like 2 super fight cards a year that are on pay-per-view, and then I think 8 Bellator cards a year, and then the PFL thing. And Don Davis did mention in this interview, I don't want to spend too much time talking about the PFL because for Christ's sakes, we spent enough. But Don Davis talked about in the interview, he's first of all, it only took him 3 minutes to name drop the UFC and compare something to the UFC, which irritates my soul. But we're starting to refer to it as a different product. So he understands, like, they do have a different product. It is a different product. It is a vastly different product. You even have the Bellator PFL card is 3 5s for all the fights, even the championship fights, but elbows are allowed.
Okay.
Whereas the tournament series doesn't have elbows. It's, like I said, it's just complicated MMA math, bro. With that being said, we can go and cover what we did watch this week, which was the UFC card. And really, again, there's times where we're like, the prelims. You got to go all the way back to the prelims. This thing was great from top to bottom.
Yeah, it was a good card. Real good card.
Jimmy Flick, Malcolm Gordon.
Yeah, Malcolm Gordon retired after that fight. And Jimmy Flick, understandable, Jasmine. This
one, she had Cachoeira had missed weight, or they came to. I watched the Jazz interview. Cachoeira had missed weight. It was supposed to be at 30. Then it was 35, or something like that. And then they basically said they're putting it up 5 more because they didn't want her to lose. So whatever. So there's a big thing with the weight. She outstruck her and set a record on this, and got performance of the night bonus. Like this fight, this is the fight that got us kicked off of Facebook and YouTube last week for a couple.
Yeah. Shit really fell apart at the end.
Yeah, it just went. You guys probably didn't see us much after that if you were tuning in.
No, good for Jasmine. She's an absolute sweetheart, absolute professional. Like the girl deserved that.
CFFC veteran. We've seen her fight in the CFFC before. Sam Patterson won that through submission. That was kind of just an average.
Yeah.
Jillian Robertson with a good showing. I was super proud. She's been working a lot with Dean Thomas, and you could tell it changed her game a little bit. That was a great fight. Another performance of the night.
Yeah, a lot of people.
Tavares missed weight.
A lot of people were torn in this fight. They thought Sade won. Tavares won the decision. A lot of people thought Sergey Sade won. I mean, it was a bloody mess. They were going back and forth. A really hard fight to judge.
Yeah, really hard fight. Tavares missed weight, so Sade ended up with a little bit of his purse, so that probably softened the blow just a little bit.
Yeah.
Woodson looked really good. He is so long.
Referee raised the wrong guy's hand. That was fun. That was fun to watch.
Yeah, and it was definitely some weird shit going on with that one because the names didn't even sound. Buffer very rarely screws up. Brad Katona, I was a little disappointed in this, but all the Canadian men did not do very well. It was the opposite of Vancouver.
Yeah.
Armfield won pretty unanimous decision. Katona looked good at the beginning of that fight, and I'm pulling for Brad Katona because it's the second opportunity he's gotten to come in. Mm-hmm. But Armfield squeaked it out. This is the one that we were talking about earlier. And for those of you that do not know, in Ontario, Canada, they are using the modified rules where if the soles of your feet are touching the ground, nothing else can touch the ground. If anything else touches the ground, you're down to. So the knees that Arnold Allen was throwing, some of the knees that Arnold Allen threw were illegal, but they were illegal in Ontario, and they wouldn't have been illegal in other places.
Listen, in the United States, as far as I know, I think all 50 states are operating on the new ABC rules. Every knee that was thrown was legal in the United States. In Canada, no. So, yeah, Arnold Allen, every knee he threw would be legal here in the United States.
There was something I was going through the other day looking at it. And there was an article, and I forgot to save it, so I don't know where it is.
I'll tell you what, for those watching, this had been adapted. I stepped away from officiating, I believe, in 2020, 2021, somewhere around there. When I kind of decided to step away, okay? This wasn't something new that was happening. We had went through training years prior. It is a full palm down, okay? It doesn't matter what you want the rules to be. It doesn't matter what the rules were in the past. It doesn't matter which, personal opinion. If that full palm is not down, the knee is legal. Okay. Just because this isn't the NFL where you twinkle toes and get a toe down and like, oh, we're just looking to see if a toe's down. Full palm down is what they're looking for. Okay. Not a single knee landed where his full palm was down. Hand was bouncing up and down in the air. In the United States, every knee would be legal. Okay. And we'll get into it a little bit later, but the announcers are really pissing me off because they had no fucking clue. They literally still think it's the fingertips. It drives me fucking nuts. We'll talk about that later. But
well, it's not the announcer's fault either. Like Anik's one of the best in the game. I'm not, and
he is.
Again, we spoke on this. Anik was commentating the fight Saturday, puts Bill off with his interpretation of what was going on. However, Monday afternoon, when Anik's talking to someone, who said something to him, he found out what the rules were live on the internet on Monday. He wasn't even aware of them while he was commentating the fight.
Okay, you want to know what pisses me off about that? These guys, Daniel Cormier, John Anik, Dominic Cruz, Paul Felder, they're all active on Twitter. Look at your fucking comments. Your whole page is lit up with fans that know the fucking rules. Put your damn ego aside. Check your fucking Twitter comments and realize that, like, you don't know the fucking rules. Fucking read. It's right in front of your face. Your whole page is lit up with what the people are posting pictures of the fucking rules. And nope, they'll just ignore it and announce the next event. You know what I mean? Because it's like pay the fuck attention. This is your job. This is work. You have heard rumblings. You've heard rumblings through the grapevine that, your whole page is lit up like, hey man, learn the fucking rules. Social media is a hell of a tool these days. It drives me fucking nuts to hear these guys announce. And they're like, oh, let's see if his fingers were on the ground. For what? For who? For what? That's not the fucking rule. We're all so used to watching the NFL on Sunday and like, oh, let's see if his toe is down. Has nothing. It's a full palm down. And for these guys to be announcing at the highest level, and you know what? A lot of fans hear them talk, and that's what they go with. They're like, oh, well, his fingertips are down. That's the rule. No, pay the fuck attention. How the fuck has John Anik been doing this for fucking 3, 4, 5 years, however the hell he's been around, and he's just finding out the fucking rules on some fucking podcast on Monday? Are you shitting me?
Well, the Ontario is the Ontario rule is an outdated, unchanged rule.
It is.
So if you go 50 again, if you go 50 something places, and here's the deal: if you are going through fight week and you are preparing and you were doing this, and it doesn't come up in the rules meeting, first of all, let's not bitch at John Anik. Let's bitch at the Ontario Commission that hasn't changed it. B, the Ontario Commission that knows their rule is different than 95% of the other places that are doing the sport. So you should asterisk this at your fighter meeting and remind everybody, because I guarantee you, states like Pennsylvania that have advanced amateur rules, you cover what rules are what's allowed and what's not allowed.
Thoroughly. Yes, 100%.
So therefore, let's not bitch at the UFC for not updating their staff, because it's not the UFC's fault. Let's not even bitch at John Anik, because something like this, unless you look for it or you're aware of it, you wouldn't know. Because guess what? If they called you up and they said, hey, Bill, we heard you're really good. We need you to come to Ontario and do this. All shit's paid for. Jump in, let's go. You wouldn't even know till you got up there that the rule was different, because you don't work for that commission every day. So let's not say this guy and that guy and this. It's the fucking Ontario Commission's fault. They need to get it together. Other commissions need to get with the ABC, set their rules, and get some fucking uniformity and some other shit, because when you got guys like Eric Nixick, who's coaching some of the top fighters in the world, if he don't know what he's telling his fight, you got Firas Zahabi, who lives up there. That's the exception to the rule, because Firas Zahabi operates out of Toronto.
All right.
Dean Thomas was Jazz Davicius's coach, and he even made a comment about it, about the rules being different. If you don't operate in that territory, you're not going to know. So let's not blame any of these guys for not preparing or not doing this. It's the fucking commission's fault, and you need to get your shit together.
All right. But you know what? The counterpoint to that is the UFC. The Ontario Commission doesn't throw 48 fucking shows a year. You know, they don't. Not UFC shows. The UFC, this is their business. Before they even ask to go to any Brazil, Russia, wherever the fuck they want to go, the UFC has the power at this point to say, hey, here's the situation. Here's the way the rules operate in the rest of the fucking free world. This is the rule set for this event. If you want the part of the ticket sales from the gate, if you want the event to happen in your city, here is the rules we're using. The same rules as everywhere else in the world.
But you can't do that, because then when shit goes sour, it's, well, the UFC brought the judges, or the UFC. No, it needs to be completely fucking separate. You can lobby to have the rules changed.
Listen. The UFC, Dana White calls up the athletic commission and say, hey, we want to do an event in Ontario, Canada, 6 months from now. Here is the rules, and this is why it's the rules, because we want our fighters to be under a uniform set of rules. It's this way everywhere else. Do you agree? If Ontario says no, then you say, hey, sorry, everybody. We tried to schedule an event in Ontario. They don't want to adapt to the rule set that the rest of the free world has adapted to. We will be back as soon as they do. And that's it.
And
you schedule your event somewhere else.
At the end of the day, people don't understand the concept of how it works either, that they get site fees. This isn't the UFC just going, hey, we haven't been to Toronto in a while. We're going to go back to Toronto because the fans are fucking awesome. No. When a UFC event comes to a major city, it's called an economic event.
Yeah, it influences a lot of shit.
You have millions of dollars that's being taxed by the fighters. You have hotels filling up. You have restaurants. You have, for example, Australia handed the UFC $20 million to do a show in Australia.
Okay. I was not aware of that.
Yes, that influx, the UFC, the ESPN deals, the Saudi government, the Australian government. We covered it a couple shows ago, but yeah, it's site fees. So when these places do this, it's not the UFC doing it. They have their commission, but you'd like to think that these places are going to have your commission get in line a little bit because it's an economic event for our area. And people don't understand it. Like everything is money. Every move, everything is money. Okay? They're not just randomly picking cities and randomly going where they want to go. No, they're randomly picking cities, and then they're randomly picking these cities because the cities are giving them money, and they're going to these places. And their marketing team they were in Toronto, Canada, so on the pre-show, the poutine business came in and brought everybody fucking poutine, and this brand is in their fucking commercials, and these people are. It's everything has to do with money, ad space, and the amount of fucking money that they're bringing in. So, and then it's all about money the other way. Also, Australia gave them 20 million. Well, they got to make that fucking 20 million back.
Mm-hmm.
It's all driven by the fucking dollars. It's all. It's why the Saudi Arabia card was fucking.
And I get that, but I just feel like the UFC could be like, hey, we want to do the event. We do. Here's what the rules need to be, and here's why. We're not being dickheads. Here's why the rules need to be what they are. They need to be in line with what our fighters are fighting year in, year out. You guys can't have your own special set of rules. Canada, we want to do the event. Can you adapt to the rest of North America and the free world and make this the rules so and you could explain it to whoever's in charge, whoever has the yes or no vote over in Canada. You can say, hey, our guys need to play under the same rules no matter where they're fighting. It just makes sense. I feel like the UFC could do that, and this is probably the last straw. Like the whole remember when we used to have events in the United States and it would change state to state to state to state. That is exhausting, stupid. I've reffed under that. I'd go to Virginia, it was different than it was in New Jersey. I'd go to New Jersey, it was different than it was in Pennsylvania. I'd go to like another state, I'd go to Delaware, it was different, and it's like we fixed all that. It's fine, and nobody. We fixed all that, and nobody's thrown a fit. It's been a pretty smooth transition. We can get the rest of these places on board. The argument makes sense for whoever can say yes or no over in Ontario, Canada. You could say, hey, our fighters have been fighting under these rules for 5 years. You're the only one that's different. Can we fix this before we come there? And I really feel like the Ontario Commission would be like, yeah, we can adopt the new rules. I really feel like it would be that simple,
Well, I mean, they were at Vancouver. They were in Vancouver, and it was I don't know if it's the same rules in Vancouver as it even is in Toronto. Much like you just alluded to, the Virginia and the Delaware and the Pennsylvania rules are all different. I remember when I was getting ready to fight my first amateur fight. Did I want to go to Virginia where ground strikes are legal as an amateur? Did I want to fight in PA where it was amateur rules and that advanced amateur, even that landscape as an amateur, there's so many different options.
Yeah.
So
now, I really feel like the UFC has the power to fix this at this point, and in the future, moving forward, if they go to a different state or a different country or wherever, and they say, hey, we want the rules to be this, and they get pushback from commission, I feel like they can say, hey, let us show you this show from Ontario, Canada. This is why we're pushing for the same rule set everywhere.
I think you're muddying the waters a little bit because the first time the UFC looks at a commission and asks them to do something, and again, Dana doesn't do shit based on what people fucking say, but you already know what it is now. There's a segment of the population that will sit there and call casuals who haven't watched MMA since they've been watching MMA since 2018, and they're idiots and they're on the internet calling people casuals. And they don't understand the difference. They don't remember a time where you're watching a broadcast and it says new rules or the new.
Oh my God, that was frustrating as hell. That was absolutely frustrating because I'd be giving rules meetings in the back, and the fighters would be like, "Well, can I do this time? This time?" Well, like, one, you should have known that before you signed up to fight in this state. Two, yes, you can. Here's and you'd have to keep it straight. And even as a referee, I'd have to walk up and ask the commission beforehand, and just clarify. A couple be like, all right, this is the rule tonight, correct? Completely idiotic. I'm glad we fixed it here in the United States. We're to see us still struggling with this type of shit is absolutely frustrating.
Yeah. Well, I think the ABC needs to. I think we just need a North American. One set of North American rules, and we need to get away from some of this stuff. I mean, you look at Demetrius Johnson. Demetrius Johnson went to one where he fought in the United States and wherever else he fought, but he fought for the UFC for a long time. He was world champion and considered one of the best of all time. And he goes over to one, and he gets kneed in the head and knocked out because in one, soccer kicks and knees to the head to a ground opponent are legal. And I don't think Demetrius Johnson, that fight would have played out that way had he been used to the rules.
Well, I'll tell you what, I used to watch UFC events like about 4 or 5 years ago, and I'd hear the term the unified rules of mixed martial arts, and it used to drive me fucking crazy. I had a different rule book in Virginia, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. I had 4 different fucking rule books. Like, oh, it's the unified rules of mixed martial arts. Unified to who? Like, just the states that wanted to be involved. But like I said, to anybody watching right now, to anybody looking to be not educated, but to gain more knowledge, pretty much, you know what? I'll do a little homework this week. I'm almost positive all of North America has adapted to the ABC's rules. I do believe, I don't think any states are different anymore. Now, maybe the amateur rules vary a little bit, but as far as like a professional fight, when the UFC comes around, I do believe all of North America is under the same rule set. I believe so.
Yeah.
I'll do some homework between this week and next week, and I hate homework, but I'll do it for this.
Which would be the new unified rules as we know them, but that's the 2016 rules, and if I'm not mistaken, Ontario's still using like 2003 rules.
Yeah, and you know what? That is up to the UFC, the powers that be, to say, you know what? You just saw why everybody is adapting to these new rules. When you guys decide to catch up and get on board, we'll be back. Until then, we're not.
It's also you have a different situation. Like, first of all, there's commissions that have the 165 weight class.
Okay.
There's commissions. There are times, and there are, places that the UFC goes, the United States of America, where they can legally book a 165-pound fight. They just choose not to.
Okay. Well, I know when it comes to only to the UFC, listen, if you had 2 people that were top ticket draws at a local MMA event, professionals that wanted to fight at 165, that fight would happen. The promoter would make it happen. It wouldn't be a catch weight. A catch weight is always available. You know, you could proposition the Pennsylvania State Athletic Commission and say, hey, both of my competitors have signed contracts. They want to fight at 182.5 pounds. And the Pennsylvania State Athletic Commission could sanction that. Dana White and the UFC does not want that.
No, it starts getting messy when you have all those belts and all that stuff. So it's
when they make about now if a guy misses weight by 2 pounds, the new sanctioned weight is 182. It's a catch weight. Say it's supposed to be at 170, and one guy weighs in at 173.5, and the other guy's at 170.5. It's a catch weight fight at 173. So that is always an option. But I know Dana White doesn't like that. So he's fine. He's fine with the weight classes that they have now. And currently, for whatever his reason is, he doesn't want to add any more weight classes. I think the more champions you have, the better. You know, now you don't want to make it like boxing where there's a champion every 3 pounds. But, you know, like I've always been an advocate from light heavyweight is 205. Heavyweight is 265. I think a 230-pound weight class would be great. It's for those guys that can't get down to 205, but they're not heavy enough to bang with like Brock Lesnar in them. You know, I
feel like you do like a 165 maybe, and then a 230 or a 225. Like a 165, a 225, maybe 235. Like you have a nice midweight there after light heavyweight, and then change that to heavyweight, and then 265 or whatever becomes super heavyweight.
Listen, the more, if you're Dana White, the more champions you have, the more headline or the more pay-per-views you can headline, the more fan bases you can create for a fighter. You know what I mean? Everybody likes to root for a champion. They like to say, my favorite fighter is this guy. And it's generally a champion. You know what I mean? They like that. So the reason that Dana White doesn't want to, I'm not saying add 8 extra weight classes. The one between 205 and 265 makes sense to me. Maybe the 165 makes sense because there's a lot of guys that can't get down to 170, and so they stay up, and these guys, they manipulate their weight. There's some guys who have, dude, I thought like Sean Strickland, he looked like shit stepping on the scale at 185. He looked like he really fucking hurt himself, Now, I'm not saying there should be a 195 weight class, but 195 would probably fit him a hell of a lot better. Dude, I remember cutting weight to get to these weight classes, and it was fucking horrible. I would have much, much rather. I walked around 198, 199, and I would cut to 185. If I had a 195 pound weight class, that's exactly where the hell I fought. I hated the weight cut. I just wasn't big enough to go up to 205. Those guys that I would cut to 185 to fight, and I walked around at like 198. If I went up to 205, I was generally fighting a guy who probably would have been cutting from like 225. This is a massive motherfucker. This is a big ass dude.
And if you're putting 10 to 15 on, if you're rehydrating and putting 10 to 15 on easy, that makes a huge difference, especially when you step back in. We got away from what we were talking about.
Yeah, we do that sometimes. That sounds like
I never tell a story in a straight line. It's my ADHD.
Yeah, that sounds like some shit we would do.
That's why they give me medicine.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Chris
Curtis, Mark Andre. Chris Curtis looked real good.
He did.
Close
fight.
Very close fight. Had Barry Alt for that.
Okay. Close fight.
Yeah, very close fight. Chris edged him out. Good thing for Chris. I'm happy for him. He's a good dude. Yep.
Oh, Mike.
He's the one that broke your heart.
You broke my fucking heart, Mike. Dude, I had it. I didn't lose $600 in bets. I was set to win $600, and now I don't have the money, which makes me feel like I lost $600. Mike, oh my God. And you could see it. He wasn't even really hurt. It was a great stoppage. Kevin McDonald gave him every chance to recover, but he was just stuck in a bad position and taking shots. It's not like he was getting beat unconscious, but as a referee, you can only let him take 15 or 20 covering up before you have to stop it. And Kevin McDonald knew that Mike Malott was ahead by 2 rounds. Neil Magny knew that Mike Malott was ahead 2 rounds. And it's one of the things that's like, I will give you every fucking opportunity to change what the fuck I'm seeing before I stop this fight. And Kevin McDonald did a great job with that fight. And when he stopped it, Magny got a Malott literally rolled over perfectly fine because he was covering up for all the shots, but it was still 20 shots while you were turtled up. Mike Malott rolled over. You could see his eyes look up at the ceiling like, fuck. I literally had that fight won, and I just lost it in front of my home country. Probably he lost his win bonus too. I only lost a couple, I probably lost $150 total in that fight. Mike Malott probably lost a $40,000 win bonus in his home country.
There's levels to this shit, son. There's levels to this shit.
Listen, he probably wanted the moment as much as the money. In your hometown, like Canada, you just beat a guy who's had like Neil Magny's had like 20-something fights in the UFC.
He's a multi-record holder at welterweight. Like, this was a test the kid needed. He looked good. He's genuinely a good guy.
He is.
He needed this though. He not you get some guys that they get to 15, 16, 17 and 0 and they don't let Mike get this loss now. He learned it. It'll be a lesson for him. As long as he learns from it, it's a positive thing.
Brutal.
Mike's not going anywhere. I think you'll see Mike
Brutal,
a
a
little
great
bit more.
fighter. Brutal loss. We're all feeling the pain of this one, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, definitely think he just burned himself out a little bit, and Magny, being the veteran, conserved, waited, and it
You
only
know what
takes
it
one
was?
mistake.
Once he was on the ground and started fucking around trying to look for a heel hook in the third round, realize the game plan has gone south. You jumped for a guillotine, you missed. Now you're on the ground. Stop rolling around for heel hooks. You know you're up 2-0. Survive the round. Don't look for the finish. Don't look for offensive shit. Stall till you win the fight. But
yeah, and if he would have just kept moving, I think it might have looked a little bit different at the end of that. But shout out to Neil Magny.
yeah, hey,
Nothing
he
wrong
got it
with him
done, man.
winning.
He got it
Yeah.
done.
Myra Bueno Silva, didn't like her before. Don't like her now.
Next. Get that bullshit off my TV. Like, what the fuck is that?
Hey, look, for what it's worth,
Hey,
Rocky's
good
been in it for a minute.
Pennington.
Yeah, I'm glad she got it. I'm not.
No. No, she's been around for a while. Good for her. But at the end of the third round, you could literally see that Bueno Silva chick yelling in Bruce Buffer's face. She was literally just trying to survive the clock, which sucks as a fan. That
yeah,
sucks.
She folded like a cheap chair at a yard sale. Shout out to Rocky for that. Rocky won. She deserved it. She's already talking about not staying around for long. I think her versus Pena is the next logical thing. I think if Pena beats Rocky, you're going to see Amanda Nunes come back. And now...
yeah, Amanda Nunes seems to have that whole Alex Pereira for Izzy Adesanya thing. I think if Nunes sees or if Amanda Nunes sees Juliana Pena on top, she'll be no way.
No way. And now you just have Dana's over here. Oh, well, what about Kaylee? We'll just sprinkle a little Kara Harrison in the picture and see how that goes. So I think there's definitely going to be some interesting beef in women's MMA. Nobody likes it. Nobody seems to give a fuck.
Yeah.
Dricus Duplessis, Sean Strickland, fight of the night. Razor close. I mean, it was a pick'em going into the fight. I mean, you can look here. Outstruck. Here's the deal. Strickland won 1-5. Okay. DDP clearly won 3-4. Or 2-4, I'm sorry. And no, where would I even say 2-4. Where's this? Which one was it? Was it 4? I don't remember which one it was. Strickland. I had Strickland 1-5, and I feel like DDP won 2-4, and 3 was the toss up. But I can't remember.
As we discussed earlier in the show, I felt visually Duplessis won. Sean seemed to have hit him a lot more. I'm not sure what
Sean
the official,
definitely outstruck him.
I'm not sure what the official fight metrics are, but I understand why it was a split decision. I do, and that's probably, I could see the path to victory for either guy. I was not confident that I had won my Mike Malott money back.
No, and again, what I summed it up to, and we talked about it earlier, and for everybody that doesn't know, there's rules, they exist. They exist in an order for a reason. The game plan definitely was significantly changed up by the 6 takedowns. I think Sean outstriking Dricus definitely there's people that had it 4-1 Duplessis, and I just don't see it. I see it 3-2.
I had it 3-1.
And it could have been 3-2 either way.
Now, I suck as a judge, but I had it 3-1 Duplessis going into the 5th round. But I suck as a judge. I'm not a good judge. So,
and again, 2-4 clear defined rounds. And I guess we kind of already touched on your ref rant, but we're pushing it about an hour here. Shout out if you're in the comments or you're watching. Shout out, drop a comment, be part of the show. If not, I think. We kind of touched on everything, Bubba.
Well, here's the thing. When we just double them back to that Strickland Duplessis fight for just 30 seconds, Sean Strickland, dude. I go back with that guy. I refereed one of his first 2 fights in the UFC, I think, against Alex Garcia. I have watched him. Sean, you have an amazing jab. I'm aware you spar for 20 fucking rounds. You know what? Get with Joe Pyfer. Ask Joe Pyfer how to sit down on a fucking punch and take a motherfucker out. I'd like to see Sean go full attack mode. Like, drop the fucking hammer on somebody. I've seen you jab for 5 rounds with Jack Hermanson. I've seen you jab with 5 rounds for Jared Cannonier. I've seen you jab Dricus Duplessis for 5 rounds. Dude, you're American Psycho. I love Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland's my dude. Drop the fucking hammer on somebody, man. Enough of these decisions and all that. Drop the fucking hammer. If you don't want to go to decision, if you don't want to lose a split to Duplessis, if you don't want to lose a decision to Karen here, fucking, be this American Psycho that you would drop the fucking hammer on somebody, man. You set the jab up with some killer fucking crosses.
Pull this back up real quick.
Yes.
I think also if you look at the middleweight rankings,
I would love to just watch Sean Strickland go full killer mode, full Iceman Liddell.
I think we might get Cannonier Strickland too, because if you look at,
everybody the second you say that, I automatically think, 5-round decision. I want to see Strickland go full Chuck Liddell, full Joe Pyfer. Start dropping the hammer on these motherfuckers. Drop the fucking hammer. What up, Brent? Yeah, I wish Brent could come on the show and give us some opinions on shit, but he is still very, very active with the Athletic Commission, so he can't say what he really thinks about some shit.
Yeah, man. Other than that, just to circle back to the beginning here and let you guys know, we are brought to you by Pull No Punches Apparel, 717 Surplus, and our friends over at CannaDips. This week's flavor, tropical mango, 10 milligrams of CBD per pouch. You can head over to CannaDips.com, use the code FightShow for 20% off. Check out Pull No Punches Apparel as well if you guys need some hoodies. Still pretty chilly out where we're at. I think we are good. Still working on some other guests, and we do have merch coming. Bill left. He said, "Fuck you."
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
We do. For those that have been asking in the chats and stuff, we do have merch. We are finalizing some design stuff, I think, this week or next week, and that'll be available for purchase very, very soon. And I will have all the info on that. We got some other guests coming up. Nothing coming up this week. We will cover the.
Hey, real quick before we get out, shout out Zach Kelly, who won his boxing with the fight that I was at last week as we were broadcasting and showed a UFC clipping got kicked off. Zach Kelly won a unanimous decision in his second pro boxing match. Shout out Zach Kelly. He'll be on the show, and his brother Jake, who's fighting for a amateur world kickboxing title, who we're actually sponsoring. So
shout out to Mike Apparel too. Mike Apparel, friend of the show, friend of us. Mike Apparel, BKFC Prospect Series. He's the co-main in Manassas in February.
I'm going to that, man. I'll go to that. I'm down. Road trip.
Yeah, I think we might need to make a trip. We'll see. I got some stuff going in. It's actually my daughter's birthday today, so we're going to go down, and she's already done her presents and cake. So
okay.
I got some vacation and stuff coming up in February, so I don't know what I'm doing, but man on the street bill will go. All right, we'll be back next week, 7:00. Shout out to Pull No Punches Apparel, CannaDips, and 717 Surplus again, and I will talk to you soon. And Bill, I guess we will. I don't know. I don't even know where I was going with that. I'm kind of just Anyways, all right, guys. Fight Show episode 19. We're out.
Peace, guys. See ya.
See you, bud.